Oh, good morning, USA. Welcome to another scintillating episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. I took a few days off. I was in Cleveland to visit my grandson, Sammy, for his 4th birthday. So I'm glad to be back. I'd like to start with the book, the Bernie or Bust Pioneers of Electoral Revolt book, on page 27 first, and then page 198. On page 27 it says, "But the illegitimacy of today's Democrats hardly implies today's Republicans are legit." Goes on to call the Republicans names, proto-fascist, etc., and finishes with Secretary Clinton, the greater of two dangerous, revolting plutocrats. So we've got right now our choice of revolting plutocrats, and what Bernie or Bust is trying to do is apply leverage to the system so that we can choose a choice that isn't a revolting plutocrat. Not only do we have obvious revolting plutocrats now, we have stealthy revolting plutocrats. And I would call Elizabeth Warren a stealthy revolting plutocrat, because a lot of the things she does looks like progressive. It's based on ideals of progressivism. But bottom line is bottom line. A lot of my conclusions here obviously are not based on what the mainstream media are saying. We got into that last time. I would say that when I'm trying to figure out if Elizabeth Warren passes muster, the main people I go to are Tim Black. I trust Tim Black almost more than I trust Bernie. Tim Black is a relentless truth teller. People aren't always going to like what he has to say, and that's why I'm sure that he's not where a lot of the establishment, quote, progressives are, because they want everyone to like what they say. And Tim doesn't care. Tim just flat out tells the truth. And when it comes to some of the people who have been obscured the most by our media, for example, Tulsi Gabbard and Elizabeth Warren, our media that we watch easily, we don't have to go digging into the side currents for them. They make it very difficult to figure out who Elizabeth and Tulsi really are. So if you want to know, you should go listen to Nico House on the Mikasa Sukasa show. You should listen to the Tim Black show. You should listen to Jimmy Dore and Lee Camp and Caitlin Johnstone. She doesn't have a video show, like a television format. She's more of an article writer, but her truth, again, is relentless and in people's faces and accurate. They don't even spare themselves. All of those people are true journalists, even though they look like comedians sometimes. They get right to the bottom of things. All right, so what we established on page 27 of the book is that both parties' candidates can be unspeakably revolting. On page 198 of the book, we have a little section called the F word, and the F word referring to is fascism. And there's a whole section here comparing Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Bernie Sanders, among other people, and Trump, and Donald Trump. All of these people are being compared as to how they stack up with regard to fascism. And what we've got is Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump are very similar. If anything, Hillary and Barack are higher than Donald Trump, but we don't know the whole story yet. Donald Trump is moving up. He's moving up on the fascistic scale. So again, if you read that section, starting on page 198, says 2 points about going through this exercise. People will disagree with my assessments, and readers are encouraged to take out a pencil and mark their own score in the margins or on a sheet of paper. You can do this yourself, but if you apply your own judgments to this scale, the fascism scale, you'll realize that neoliberal Democrats are very high on that scale, which is why we need to flush all of them out. Final point for today's episode is from an article that I've quoted from, an article I've written for Medium. It's called Define Bigotry. And it describes a conversation with a youngish, snarling Democrat. And I told this youngish Democrat, I said, the fact is that at least 12% of Bernie Sanders supporters voted directly for Donald Trump, and 8% voted for someone other than Hillary Clinton. And this was especially devastating to Clinton in swing states in the 2016 presidential election. When I start saying that to comfortable Democrats, they start waving their hands in my face and telling me to stop talking. It's just something they can't hear. They're not, if they hear it, they either deny it flat out, or they say, we need to pull our heads out of our asses and figure out how to stop voting for anyone who's either Bernie Sanders or a Democrat, the vote blue. And it's not going to happen. Based on the statistics from the last election, how Bernie Sanders voters actually voted, and how they're likely, according to Emerson especially, they're likely to vote in the 2020 elections, it's not going to happen. So even though it sounds pugilistic, we need to make it clear to comfortable Democrats that they're not going to get a corporatist into office. They need to understand, they need to come around now, they need to come around before the Iowa caucus, that they just can't have someone like Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, Mayor Pete, Gillibrand, Klobuchar. We will keep relentlessly telling the truth about neoliberal Democrats, that they just will not pass muster with the left flank of the left flank. And so that's the best reason to buy the book, because you may be tempted to think that various flavors of progressive candidates will be just as good or better than a true progressive. And what the book points out, based on the hard and fast criteria for deciding who is a neoliberal, who is a corporatist, and then also the media sources that the book mentions, it just makes it clear that we can't compromise on someone who isn't a true progressive. And there are very few. There may be emerging true progressives, and I sure hope so. But right now, it's very difficult to pick out more than two. All right then. I, as usual, am unshaved, unbathed, unscripted, and unedited, and happy to answer questions you might have. If you find me on Facebook and you just can't see where I'm coming from, feel free to start a discussion there on the rap sheet, the Revolt Against Plutocracy rap sheet Facebook group. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Always happy to chat with you. And until we meet again, that sounds like the end of the Lawrence Welk Show. Have a great day.